She walked in without a word, flight helmet in one hand, zero expression. The colonel sized her up and laughed the kind of loud, performative laugh men do when they want to make sure the room hears it. "You? Really?" She didn't respond, just climbed into the cockpit of a jet no one thought she'd been cleared to fly. What happened 3 minutes later would shut down the airstrip, trigger a classified review, and end 3 careers. If you've ever had to prove yourself when everyone counted you out, this story is for you. Subscribe for more tales of underdogs who changed everything. Captain Ava Torres had been flying for 8 years, but at Nellis Air Force Base, she might as well have been invisible. Her call sign said it all: Ghost. Not because she flew like a phantom, though she did, but because her name never appeared on flight rosters, mission briefs, or anywhere that mattered. The transfer papers were clean enough. Reassignment from Edwards due to operational restructuring. Standard military bureaucracy. But the pilots knew better. You didn't get moved from a premier test facility to a training base unless something had gone wrong. Very wrong. Ava never talked about Edwards. Never explained the black box incident that had grounded her entire squadron for 6 weeks. Never mentioned the classified hearing or the sealed report that followed her personnel file like a shadow. She just showed up every morning at 0500, ready to fly whatever they'd let her touch. Which, lately, wasn't much. Colonel Richards had made his position clear during her first week. "Torres, you're here because Washington says you have to be. But my flight line, my rules. Prove you belong, or find somewhere else to haunt." So they gave her the jobs nobody wanted. Simulator oversight, babysitting rookie pilots through basic maneuvers. Fuel coordination, making sure jets had enough gas to taxi, let alone fly. Observer shift sitting in the tower, watching real pilots do what she'd trained her whole life to do. For 6 months, Ava took it all without complaint. She filed reports on time, showed up early, stayed late, but every morning she still brought her flight helmet, just in case. The call came on a Tuesday. New AI training system needed live pilots for calibration testing. 5 slots, 5 hand-picked aviators, 1 day to show the brass what their expensive new toy could learn. Ava wasn't invited, wasn't even mentioned in the briefing email, but she knew about it, knew everything that happened on base. Ghosts had a way of overhearing conversations. Wednesday morning, she showed up in full flight gear. "What are you doing here, Torres?" Lieutenant Vega asked, zipping up his G-suit. "Flying," she said simply. Major Hendricks laughed from across the ready room. "Nobody told you this was happening. Nobody told me it wasn't." Colonel Richards walked in, spotted her immediately. His jaw tightened, but before he could speak, Captain Morrison spoke up. "Sir, we're actually 1 short," Jenkins called in sick. Richards looked at Ava, then at the clock. The evaluation was scheduled to start in 20 minutes. Pentagon observers were already in the tower. Delays meant paperwork, explanations, disappointed generals. "Fine," he said, "but stay in formation, follow lead, don't make me regret this." Ava nodded once and headed for the flight line. The F-16 waiting for her was older than the others, a trainer model with more flight hours than some pilots had years of service. While the other aviators got pristine jets with the latest avionics, Ava got the backup bird with the scratched canopy and the radio that crackled. She didn't complain. She'd flown worse. Her pre-flight inspection was methodical, thorough. Every rivet, every control surface, every connection checked twice. The ground crew watched her work with professional curiosity. Most pilots did the bare minimum pre-flight, sign the forms, trust the mechanics, get airborne, not ghost. "You expecting trouble?" asked Sergeant Martinez, the crew chief. "Always," Ava replied, running her hand along the wing edge. "Smart. This bird's got personality. Pulls left on takeoff, tends to oversteer in high-G turns, but she's solid. Brought her last pilot home from 3 deployments." Ava looked up. "What happened to him?" "Promoted. Pentagon desk job. Said flying a simulator wasn't the same as flying." She climbed into the cockpit, settled into the ejection seat, began the startup sequence. Around her, engines were spooling up, radios crackling with pre-flight chatter. 5 pilots, 5 jets, 1 chance to show the AI what American aviation looked like. 4 of them had flown together before. 4 of them knew each other's habits, each other's voices, each other's limits. And then there was Ghost. The formation took off. Clean 5 F-16s, rising into Nevada's crystal blue sky like a steel ballet. Colonel Richards led from the front in Falcon 1, followed by Morrison in 2, Hendricks in 3, Vega in 4. Ava brought up the rear in 5, maintaining perfect position, saying nothing on the radio. The AI system was impressive sensors tracking every movement, every control input, every micro-adjustment the pilots made. In theory, it would learn to predict pilot behavior, anticipate needs, maybe even suggest tactical improvements. In practice, it was just another computer trying to understand something that lived in the space between instinct and physics. "All right, Falcons." Richard's voice crackled through the headsets. "Standard combat spread formation. AI's watching every move, so make it look good. No showboating, no freelancing. By the book." They spread out, each pilot taking their designated position in the formation. The morning air was smooth, visibility unlimited, perfect flying weather. The kind of day that made you remember why you'd wanted wings in the first place. For 20 minutes, everything went according to plan. Routine maneuvers, standard formations, the kind of flying that looked impressive to civilians but felt like driving to work for anyone with more than 100 hours of stick time. Then the weather changed. The thermal hit them like an invisible fist, superheated air rising from the desert floor, creating turbulence that didn't show up on radar or weather reports. One second, they were in perfect formation. The next, they were fighting to stay in the sky. "Thermal, break formation," Richards called, but it was too late. The invisible column of rising air caught Morrison first, flipping his F-16 into an involuntary barrel roll. He overcorrected, pulling too hard on the stick, sending his jet into a climbing spiral that put him directly in Hendricks' flight path. Collision course, Falcon 3, bank left. Hendricks yanked his stick hard left, but the thermal caught him too. His jet skidded sideways through the air, tail fin coming within feet of Morrison's canopy. Both pilots fought their controls, trying to regain stable flight while avoiding each other and the rest of the formation. "Falcon 4, where are you?" Richard's voice was sharp with controlled panic. Lost sight of lead, navigation spinning. The formation was coming apart. 5 jets scattered across several miles of airspace, each pilot focused on their own aircraft, their own survival. Radio chatter filled with position calls, altitude reports, attempts to re-establish visual contact. In the tower, the observers watched their expensive training exercise dissolve into controlled chaos. The AI system recorded every input, every mistake, every moment of human fallibility. All except for Falcon 5. While the other 4 pilots fought the turbulence, Ava did something different. She stopped fighting and started listening, not to the radio chatter or the warning tones in her cockpit, but to the aircraft itself. The way it moved through the air, the subtle changes in engine tone, the feel of the controls in her hands. Every aircraft had its own personality, its own way of telling you what it needed. This old F-16 was no different. It wanted to dance with the thermal, not fight it. So Ava led it. She adjusted her flight path, using the rising air instead of fighting it. While the others struggled to maintain altitude and heading, she climbed effortlessly, gaining both height and position. From her vantage point above the chaos, she could see the entire situation clearly. That's when she spotted the drone. It was small, probably civilian, definitely not supposed to be in restricted airspace. But there it was, drifting on the same thermal that had scattered the formation directly in the path of Falcon 3's recovery maneuver. Hendricks couldn't see it. His instruments were still spinning from the turbulence, his attention focused on avoiding the ground and the other aircraft. In 30 seconds, he would fly directly into the drone. At 400 miles per hour, even a small collision would be catastrophic. Ava had 3 choices: break radio protocol to warn him, hope he'd spotted himself, or do something about it. She chose option 4. Pulling her F-16 into a steep climb, Ava executed a textbook Cobra maneuver, pulling the nose up so sharply that the aircraft almost seemed to stop in midair before dropping back into normal flight. It was a move that belonged in air shows, not training exercises. dangerous, unnecessary, and absolutely spectacular. It also put her directly between Hendricks and the drone. The radio fell silent. In the tower, observers watched in stunned amazement as Falcon 5 seemed to defy physics itself. The AI system recorded every microsecond of the maneuver, cataloging control inputs that shouldn't have been possible. Then Ava's voice cut through the silence, calm and professional. "Falcon 3, drone at your 2 o'clock. Recommend immediate right turn." Hendricks saw it then, the small aircraft that would have ended his career, possibly his life. He banked hard right, missing the drone by less than 50 feet. "Good eyes, 5, he said quietly. The formation reassembled without further incident. 5 F-16S touching down at Nellis in textbook formation, canopies sliding back, engines winding down. To casual observers, it had been a successful training flight. The AI had gathered its data, the pilots had demonstrated their skills, and everyone was going home in one piece. But in the tower, the conversation was anything but casual. "Run that back," General Morrison ordered, watching the replay for the third time. "The Cobra maneuver. Who authorized that?" "Nobody, sir." Falcon 5 acted independently. "Falcon 5 is Captain Torres?" "Yes, sir." The general studied the telemetry data, the precise control inputs, the split-second timing that had prevented a potential disaster. "She spotted the drone before anyone else?" "Before the radar, sir. Before the AI. Before anyone." On the flight line, Ava climbed out of her cockpit without fanfare. No celebration, no high fives, no acknowledgement of what had just happened. She completed her post-flight inspection, filed her flight report, and headed for the debrief. Colonel Richards was waiting for her in the ready room, expression unreadable. "Torres." "Sir?" "That was either the stupidest or the smartest thing I've seen in 20 years of flying." "Yes, sir." "Want to tell me which?" Ava considered this. "Depends on the outcome, sir." Richards almost smiled. "Almost. Hendricks is alive. That's a pretty good outcome." "Yes, sir." The call came down from Washington within hours. Full flight data review, immediate classification upgrade, senior staff briefing by 0800 the next morning. The kind of rapid response that meant either someone was in serious trouble or something very interesting had happened. Ava spent the night writing reports, not just about the flight, but about everything: the thermal conditions, the drone incursion, the formation breakdown, the recovery procedures, detailed, technical, comprehensive reports that read like textbook examples of post-flight analysis. She didn't mention the Cobra maneuver. That was obvious from the telemetry. She didn't emphasize her role in spotting the drone. The facts spoke for themselves. She just documented what had happened, professionally and completely. At 0800, she found herself in a conference room with 3 generals, 2 colonels, and a Pentagon analyst who'd flown in overnight. Her personnel file was spread across the table like evidence in a court-martial. "Captain Torres," General Morrison began, "tell us about Edwards." For the first time since arriving at Nellis, Ava talked about her previous assignment, the experimental flight program, the prototype aircraft that had pushed the boundaries of what was possible, the test flight that had gone wrong in ways nobody could have predicted. Black box data was corrupted, she explained. Flight computers crashed during a high-G maneuver. Backup systems failed. I had to fly the aircraft manually, no instruments, for 40 minutes until I could get it on the ground. "And your squadron was grounded because?" "Because nobody could explain how I'd done it. The aircraft should have been unflyable. Computer models said it was impossible, but I brought it home." General Morrison leaned forward. "So they transferred you?" "Yes, sir. Pending investigation into pilot error." "Which investigation concluded?" "No pilot error, aircraft malfunction, but by then, I was already here." The room fell silent. Finally, Colonel Hayes spoke up. "Captain, are you aware that yesterday's AI analysis flagged your flight performance as statistically impossible?" "No, sir. According to the computer models, the Cobra maneuver you executed should have resulted in a stall and potential crash. The timing required to spot that drone and position yourself as you did exceeded normal human reaction times. The precision of your control inputs during the thermal event was unprecedented. Ava waited. She'd heard this before. "We think," General Morrison said carefully, "that you might be exactly what the Air Force needs for a very special program." The program was classified, naturally. Advanced tactical development, experimental aircraft, mission profiles that pushed the limits of what pilots and machines could accomplish together. The kind of assignment that most aviators would kill for. Test pilot, Ava asked. Among other things, the aircraft we're developing require unusual skills, instincts that can't be taught, reactions that can't be programmed. We've been looking for pilots who can work with AI systems rather than just follow them. And you think I qualify? Captain Torres, the general said, "We think you might be the pilot these systems were designed for." The offer was everything she'd wanted since arriving at Nellis. Real flying, real missions, real respect, a chance to do what she'd trained for instead of watching from the sidelines. But there was a catch. There always was. "What about Colonel Richards, my current assignment?" "The colonel will receive new orders regarding your status. Effective immediately, you're reassigned to Special Projects Division. Your clearance level is being upgraded, your personnel file is being reclassified, and your previous performance evaluations are being reviewed." Ava understood. 3 careers had ended, just as she'd been told they would. Not hers, but the people who'd kept her grounded, who'd ignored her abilities, who'd let politics and prejudice override performance. "When do I start?" "You already have. Report to Hangar 18 at 0600 tomorrow." "And Captain?" "Yes, sir?" "Bring your helmet." Word traveled fast on a military base. By evening, everyone knew that Ghost had been reassigned to something big. The pilots who'd flown with her the day before suddenly remembered her differently. The ground crew, who'd watched her methodical pre-flight inspections, nodded knowingly. Even the tower controllers started telling stories about the quiet captain who'd saved Falcon 3 with a maneuver that shouldn't have been possible. Colonel Richards found her in the ready room, packing her personal items into a standard-issue duffel bag. "Torres." "Sir, I owe you an apology." She looked up from her packing. "Sir, I received your full file from Edwards today. Classified sections, performance evaluations, incident reports, all of them." He paused. "You didn't crash that prototype. You saved it. And probably saved the lives of 3 test pilots who would have had to fly it next." "Yes, sir." "I also received a call from General Morrison. Seems your new assignment comes with some interesting recommendations, including a suggestion that certain personnel at this base might benefit from advanced training in pilot evaluation and assessment." Ava said nothing, but she understood. The system was correcting itself, slowly and quietly. "One question," Richards continued. "Why didn't you ever defend yourself? Fight back? Demand better treatment?" Ava considered this, zipping up her bag. "Because the sky doesn't care about rank or politics or who thinks I belong. It only cares about who can fly." She headed for the door, then paused. "Besides, Colonel, Vindication is more satisfying when it comes at Mach 2. 6 months later, when new pilots arrived at Nellis and asked about the captain who'd been reassigned to special projects, they didn't get much of an answer. Just a knowing look and 4 words. "Watch her fly." Because some pilots earn their wings through politics and connections, others earn them through training and determination. But a rare few earn them by proving every single day that the sky recognizes only one authority, the ability to master it. Ava Torres had always been that kind of pilot. It just took the right moment for everyone else to see it. What would you have done in Ava's position? Have you ever had to prove yourself when everyone counted you out? Share your story in the comments and subscribe for more tales of people who refuse to be grounded.